Exar Kun stands as one of the most fascinating figures in the history of the Sith, a testament to his unique path and the divergence he represented from traditional Sith Lords. His rise and influence marked a stark departure from the archetypal Sith paradigm, rooted in his origins as a Jedi, his philosophical outlook, and the innovative ways he wielded the dark side of the Force. To understand why Exar Kun differed from traditional Sith Lords, it is essential to examine his journey, motivations, and legacy in comparison to the Sith doctrines and practices of his time and prior. Born on a lush world far removed from the oppressive darkness associated with the Sith, Exar Kun was introduced to the Force within the structured and disciplined environment of the Jedi Order. Unlike many traditional Sith Lords, who were often immersed in darkness from an early age or drawn to it through trauma, Kun's path began in the light. He was a skilled Jedi Knight, renowned for his talent and ambition, but it was precisely these traits that planted the seeds of his eventual fall. His insatiable hunger for knowledge and power drove him to explore aspects of the Force that were deemed forbidden by the Jedi Council. Unlike traditional Sith Lords, whose initiation into the dark side often began through coercion, desperation, or inheritance, Kun's choice was deliberate, driven by intellectual curiosity and hubris. The pivotal moment in Exar Kun's divergence came with his rejection of authority, not just that of the Jedi Order, but of the Sith orthodoxy as well. When he encountered Sith artifacts and lore, his initial fascination was not tied to reverence for Sith traditions, but to a desire to surpass them. Many Sith Lords before Kun, such as Naga Sato and Marka Ragnos, adhered to a rigid framework of Sith ideology, steeped in hierarchical structures and ancient rituals. These lords operated within the confines of an established order, drawing their power from collective Sith legacies. Kun, in contrast, sought to reforge and redefine what it meant to wield the dark side. His use of Sith artifacts, particularly the Amulet of Freedom Nad, was emblematic of his tendency to adapt ancient Sith tools to his own purposes rather than conforming to the traditions associated with them. Exar Kun's approach to power was as innovative as it was destructive. Where traditional Sith Lords often cultivated alliances or apprentices within a structured hierarchy to consolidate power, Kun's method was subversive and independent. After his fall to the dark side, he became the first Sith Lord in millennia to directly challenge the Jedi Order on a galactic scale, yet he did so without aligning himself fully with existing Sith factions. Even as he claimed the title of Dark Lord of the Sith, his vision for the Sith Order diverged sharply from the practices of his predecessors. He established his own cult of followers, drawing individuals to his cause not through promises of Sith tradition, but by offering them liberation from the constraints of both the Jedi and the Sith orthodoxy. One of the most profound ways Exar Kun differed from traditional Sith Lords was in his relationship with the dark side itself. For many Sith, the dark side was both a master and a source of servitude, a force to be wielded, but one that also demanded submission. Kun, however, approached the dark side as a tool to dominate and reshape the galaxy. His mastery over the dark side was characterized by audacious experimentation. He delved into ancient Sith sorcery to an extent unmatched by most Sith Lords before or after him, unlocking forbidden powers such as spirit transfer and the ability to bind his essence to artifacts and locations. These feats, though deeply rooted in Sith lore, were often pursued by Kun in ways that rejected the established dogmas of the dark side. He saw the Force not as a duality to be respected, but as a singular source of power to be bent entirely to his will. Moreover, Exar Kun's charisma and ability to inspire were exceptional even among the Sith. While traditional Sith Lords often ruled through fear, deception, or brute strength, Kun had the rare gift of persuasion. He manipulated and converted followers, including Jedi, by appealing to their innermost desires and grievances. This marked a significant departure from the methods of Sith like Darth Bane, who relied on rigid philosophies like the Rule of Two to maintain control over the Sith lineage. Kun's rebellion against the Jedi Order and his establishment of the Brotherhood of the Sith were acts of sheer audacity, designed not merely to perpetuate the Sith, but to entirely reimagine its role in the galaxy. His Brotherhood was not a return to the Sith Empire of old, but a hybrid entity, blending aspects of Jedi and Sith traditions into something uniquely his own. Kun's audacity extended to his tactics and military strategies. Unlike many traditional Sith Lords, who relied on vast fleets and armies to achieve their goals, Kun demonstrated a remarkable ability to wage psychological and spiritual warfare. His manipulation of the Massassi, an ancient warrior species, illustrated his tendency to exploit rather than align himself with existing power structures. His ability to sow discord within the Jedi Order, causing rifts and seducing members to the dark side, reflected a nuanced understanding of the human psyche. Where traditional Sith often sought to conquer through overwhelming force, Kun wielded cunning and subterfuge as his primary weapons. In his final years, Exar Kun achieved a form of immortality that further set him apart from traditional Sith Lords. While many Sith sought eternal life through alchemy or dark rituals, Kun's method was uniquely tied to his innovative interpretation of Sith sorcery. By anchoring his spirit to the temples on Yavin 4, he transcended the physical limitations that bound other Sith Lords. This act of binding his essence was not just a testament to his mastery of the dark side, but also a manifestation of his desire to outlast and outshine the Sith traditions he had both embraced and reshaped. Traditional Sith immortality often revolved around preserving the physical form, whereas Kun's spiritual persistence demonstrated a willingness to redefine even the concept of existence within the Force. Exar Kun's legacy, though ultimately marked by his defeat, was one of profound impact and innovation. The Sith Lords who followed him, particularly those who emerged during the era of Darth Bane, sought to learn from his failures as much as his successes. His audacious challenge to the Jedi Order and his reinvention of Sith principles left an indelible mark on the galaxy's history. Yet what truly set him apart from traditional Sith Lords was his rejection of tradition itself. Kun's life and actions epitomized the paradox of the dark side, the simultaneous desire for ultimate power and the inevitable descent into self-destruction. His refusal to conform to established Sith doctrines and his insistence on forging his own path not only distinguished him but also underscored the unique and tumultuous nature of his fall. Ultimately, Exar Kun was a disruptor, a figure who embodied the potential and peril of unrestrained ambition. His journey, marked by defiance and reinvention, reflected the very essence of the dark side's allure, a force that thrives on breaking boundaries and defying limits. Yet in doing so, Kun also became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the cost of pursuing power without restraint or accountability. His divergence from traditional Sith Lords was not merely a matter of philosophy or practice, but a reflection of his singular vision and indomitable will, traits that made him a legend in the annals of galactic history. Exar Kun's legacy is one that defies conventional narratives of Sith Lords, illustrating a radical departure from the traditions and practices that defined his predecessors and successors. His approach to power and the dark side was as unique as it was controversial, driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge and a willingness to subvert the norms of both Jedi and Sith alike. Unlike many traditional Sith Lords, Kun did not emerge from the typical crucible of Sith lineage or indoctrination. Instead, he crafted his own path to darkness, motivated by a combination of arrogance, intellect, and a relentless desire to transcend the limitations imposed by others. Kun's early years as a Jedi highlight the stark contrast between his origins and those of many Sith Lords before him. Raised and trained within the Jedi Order, Kun demonstrated an extraordinary aptitude for the Force, quickly rising through the ranks due to his immense potential. However, his exceptional abilities were paired with an equally formidable ego. This ego, combined with his disdain for authority, set the stage for his eventual rebellion. While most traditional Sith Lords were either born into darkness or converted through traumatic events or Sith influence, Kun's fall was a self-directed journey. He pursued forbidden knowledge not out of desperation but out of an unwavering belief that he was destined for greatness beyond the constraints of Jedi teachings. The moment Kun first encountered Sith artifacts and the teachings of Freeden Nad was pivotal. Unlike traditional Sith acolytes, who often accepted Sith doctrines wholesale, Kun approached the dark side with a critical, almost opportunistic mindset. He sought to absorb its power while bending it to his will, a characteristic that would define his entire career. Freeden Nad, an ancient Sith Lord, served as Kun's initial guide into the dark side, but their relationship was fraught with tension. Kun quickly rejected Nad's attempts to control him, demonstrating his refusal to be subjugated even by those who had mastered the dark side long before him. This rejection of Sith mentorship and orthodoxy marked a fundamental departure from the traditional Sith hierarchy, where power was often handed down through a lineage of master and apprentice. Exar Kun's transformation into a Sith Lord was not merely an adoption of dark side practices but an outright reinvention of them. Unlike the Sith Lords of old, who adhered to strict hierarchies and collective identities, Kun operated as a singular force of ambition and creativity. His mastery of ancient Sith sorcery allowed him to achieve feats that few had dared to attempt. For example, his ability to bind his spirit to the physical plane after death was a revolutionary application of Sith knowledge, bypassing the need for traditional forms of Sith immortality. This act underscored his tendency to reinterpret Sith principles to suit his own ends, rather than adhere to their established norms. Kun's manipulation of the Massassi people serves as a further example of his divergence from traditional Sith practices. Rather than ruling through fear alone, Kun employed a combination of cunning and brute force to bend the Massassi to his will, transforming them into instruments of his dark ambitions. Unlike many Sith Lords who sought to build empires or consolidate power through large-scale conquests, Kun's objectives were often more personal and ideological. He sought to rewrite the narrative of the Sith, using the Massassi as pawns in his broader plan to overthrow the Jedi and assert his dominance over the Force itself. One of the most striking aspects of Exar Kun's divergence from traditional Sith Lords was his approach to leadership. While many Sith adhered to a philosophy of ruthless pragmatism, treating their followers as disposable tools, Kun had an uncanny ability to inspire loyalty and devotion. He was a charismatic figure who could manipulate others into seeing him as a savior or a liberator. This talent allowed him to amass a following that included disillusioned Jedi, whom he seduced to the dark side with promises of power and freedom. His creation of the Brotherhood of the Sith was a direct challenge to both Jedi orthodoxy and the fractured remnants of the Sith traditions. It was a bold attempt to unite disparate forces under his singular vision, blending elements of Sith philosophy with his own radical ideas. In battle, Kun's strategies reflected his unorthodox approach to power. While traditional Sith Lords often relied on brute force and overwhelming numbers, Kun employed a mix of psychological warfare, cunning, and dark side sorcery. His ability to manipulate the minds and emotions of his enemies allowed him to sow chaos within the Jedi Order, turning former allies against one another. This method of dismantling the Jedi from within was a significant departure from the conventional Sith strategy of direct confrontation. It reflected Kun's understanding that true power lay not just in physical dominance, but in the ability to control and corrupt the minds of others. Even in his downfall, Exar Kun's legacy remained distinct from that of traditional Sith Lords. After his physical death, Kun's spirit lingered on Yavin 4, bound to the ancient temples he had once used as his stronghold. This act of spiritual preservation was unprecedented, showcasing Kun's mastery of Sith alchemy and his refusal to accept the finality of death. Unlike traditional Sith Lords who sought to preserve their physical forms, Kun embraced a more abstract form of existence, ensuring that his influence would endure long after his defeat. His spirit continued to haunt the galaxy, exerting influence over the living and serving as a testament to his unique approach to the dark side. Kun's legacy is one of both brilliance and hubris, illustrating the potential and peril of defying tradition. While his innovations and unorthodox methods allowed him to achieve feats that few Sith Lords could rival, they also contributed to his downfall. By rejecting the established wisdom of both Jedi and Sith, Kun isolated himself, ultimately facing defeat at the hands of a united Jedi Order. His story serves as a reminder that the dark side, for all its power, is an inherently unstable and self-destructive force. Exar Kun's divergence from traditional Sith Lords was not merely a matter of personality or circumstance, but a reflection of his fundamental philosophy. He rejected the notion that power should be inherited or confined within rigid structures, instead viewing it as something to be seized and shaped according to his own vision. This philosophy, while revolutionary, also left him vulnerable to the inherent dangers of the dark side: hubris, isolation, and the inevitable consequences of unchecked ambition. His life and legacy remain a complex and compelling chapter in the history of the Sith, offering valuable lessons about the nature of power, the allure of the dark side, and the price of defiance.